Farscape Engineers Inspector Summary Video here in Rochester, New Hampshire. What we have here is a pre-existing non-conforming firescape on a building, I believe used as an orphanage. And let's take a look at some of the issues that we have here. First of all, a firescape must be structurally sound, it must be kept painted. So we have some issues of the firescape not being structurally sound. We have some issues of the firescape not being painted, but primarily in this upper area. So we're going to try to meet the code, and the code requires that a firescape be, first of all, pass a confidence examination, and then we can proceed to a load test as part of the NFPA requirement here in New Hampshire, and that is the authority having jurisdiction shall accept by load test or other evidence of strength. So a couple of things on these hybrids. We have metal firescape here that meets into a catwalk system that meets into a wood system, so we have to discuss what part of this that is non-conforming will the city official allow to be pre-existing non-conforming, or will he require any of this to be upgraded. But and then the second part, what part of it needs to be painted. The firescape is all white. It does have some spot rust here and there and some issues that as I walk down this way, but painting is not going to be one of them on the metal portion. We do have some limited rust exposure here and there that I'll be discussing, but let's talk about here. So this whole entire wood structure up here, it looks like it's probably 15 to 25 years old. Got a lot of nails popping, so you got to get those back down. You got to drop some screws into this, because a lot of this wood is now just soft due to time. You have to connect these properly, and a lot of times the only thing that's going to save and add some more years, maybe push it for one more 5-year stint, is going to be a lot of the metal brackets. So Home Depot sells a lot of galvanized brackets that you can use to basically tie into the buildings, tie in corners, tie in the posts. You can do through bolt carriage bolts, but basically a lot of times is it either replace the existing, or even if you try to nail this back in, it's too soft. What you may have to do is you may have to throw it with a carriage bolt with a washer on the backside and start the squeeze process. And again, only if you want to push this another 5 years. And the other thing that you can do also to get another 5 years, instead of taking this out, in some cases you can just skin it again, going in the opposite direction maybe, but you can skin it with maybe that new pressure treated. And again, all pressure treated usually last only about 25 years if properly maintained. So this recommendation that I'm talking about here for this age of a system here, because it is pretty loose, is to buy maybe another 5 years. Otherwise, we recommend you putting in another pressure treated one, or having a metal one here that will do a lot better because of the snow. Now, freeze and thaw will split a lot of this wood. Freeze and thaw is what does this. Freeze and thaw is what starts, tearing into the wood. When you cut the woods on the end, because nobody ever treats the wood on the end, that's where it starts rotting, splitting. So a lot of this is freeze and thaw. So this definitely needs to be handled by a carpenter, first of all. The second part is you're walking on an actual roof, and it looks like it's a rubber roof here, and I think they've got it wired so that it's melting snow. I don't know if they have the same scenario here, but usually this is supposed to be, wood deck or metal deck, catwalk to feed you to the firescape. So that needs to be addressed, whether or not we're allowed to walk on the rooftop, and usually it's not. But this again, it can match the building type, so it doesn't have to be metal. So whoever fixes this can actually just extend the catwalk system here, and just before you get into the treads, you maybe want to end it just before, so you can do a step down onto the roof lip, then onto the staircase firescape. Okay, so that's the roof part of it. Okay, the pre-existing railing here, pre-existing non-conforming firescape has original hardware. Okay, so, and they look in good order. You've got some rust buildup here, again, but it's minor in nature. So this thing is getting, with minor work here on the structural here, you might be able to load test this firescape and avoid the need for the full refurb. But again, all original hardware. I'm looking for evidence of maintenance. I don't see any. But because they've been painting it, these original hardware are just suspect based on age, not because there's rust expansion happening in them. A lot of that rust expansion that you may see is so minor, it's usually just surface rust. So a lot of the treads usually would have expansion by now. These don't. You're getting some that are showing some of these rusty tears. So this might be one of those treads that you need to change the bolt prior to the to the load test, but otherwise when you keep coming down you don't see that happening and everything seems very tight. What you want to do if you load test this is you want to get in here and start silicone shutting all these connections, so that way for the future, if you're going to be load testing in the future, you want to stop any water from getting in on this. But as you see, again, original hardware, including the rivets. Now these rivets put the fire escape on average above 75 years old, because rivets were for fire escape 75 to 100 years old, and what you have here, square heads, is for fire escapes that are 50 to 75. So I estimate this fire escape to be in the 75-year range plus. So again, not much rust. I mean, you got just surface rust. You know, so this fire escape is one of those that with minor activity associated with the structural, she can probably go right to a load test. And again, the paint is not part of the load testing. It's just cosmetic. But I'm really concerned about all my connections. One of the things we may want to do is not having the fire escape tread anymore into the ground, because the snow will eat that. So this is one of those areas that I would get that tread out of the way, because you can step down into that area, and then I would tar the 6 to 8 inches of the feet going into this, so that any snow is not going to eat the fact that this is buried in the ground. Again, I'm looking for evidence of rust and rust corrosion. I'm not seeing it. I'm not seeing it in the joints. You know, you got a couple of treads that you're getting some rusty tears. Those can be verified to see if they're in good order, and you can just change the bolt out. But otherwise, 1 or 2 treads total on this. Everything else looks nice and tight. They're just suspect based on age. And so this would be one of those fire escapes that you can basically proceed to a load test. The catwalk issue will be discussed with the authority having jurisdiction to see if he wants to allow that to continue as pre-existing non-conforming. And the fire escape is white, which is basically, it's at least 75% painted. It just needs general scraping. There is lead on these fire escapes because it's older than 1978, so you just got to make sure that if you're going to scrape it, you have a renovator's license. And again, it's all about capturing the chips and disposing them correctly, and wearing the right uniform or the right gloves or the right mask when you're scraping. There's minor scraping on this fire escape, so this is one of those candidates that can proceed immediately to a load test with some minor activity structurally to it just prior to the load test that can be done in conjunction with the load test. Any questions, fire escape engineers? Inspect the summary video. This is Cisco, 866-649-0333, 866-649-0333.